Good day, everyone. Day 2 of the Indigenous Peoples Corn Summit. Welcome everyone this morning on this day. And if we have some new people joining us today, we'll be providing some of the, I guess, housekeeping rules after we get our prayer started. So I just wanted to welcome everyone again. We had great discussion yesterday, and hopefully I know we'll continue that today. But before we get too far into the program this morning, we would like to start any of our events anywhere in our communities with prayer, so that we can be help guided and put in a good frame of mind and in a good place. And today we asked Amy Wan to open this event with prayer. So with that, Amy Wan, thank you.
Before that, Clayton, just real quick, I would like to just let people know that this is this conference here will be conducted in English and Spanish. So remember to select your language at the bottom of your screen. You will see a globe icon here. Bottom of your screen, this is what you want to select, and then select your language. Do not mute your original audio. That way you'll be able to hear the floor when native language is being spoken. So look for the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and select the language that you wish to listen to. That way you'll only be able to hear one language at a time, because otherwise, if you don't enable your interpretation, you are going to hear English and Spanish at the same time. So that is what you want to look for, and we can pass it on to Amy.
Good morning. Ani Abjigik Amy Wan, Shapkamaya Amajit, Strict Objection, Donald the Nation, and your judge and your og Judgegate from Melton Miguel to Sylvester One, and your gawk and your wask of Judgegate, Mary Elizabeth Miguel to Lawrence Miguel, but and your horch and your bob of Judgegate, Mary Melissa Miles, but Daniel One, but Sisapenta Tamanye, Humun. It's really good to see everyone here today. My name is Amy Wan, and I come from the Donald Nation here in Southwest Arizona. And just introducing my parents and my grandparents, my maternal and paternal grandparents. And, very good to be here today to discuss Hoon. Hoon is how we say corn in autumn. And as you can see, I'm wearing my Hoon jewelry that has been gifted to me by different friends and family, and just very excited to hear all the discussions yesterday. We had some really interesting and beautiful knowledge being shared, and it made me think of the knowledge that's been shared here in our community. This morning, I'd like to share a planting song, and I was talking with Chris yesterday about a discussion that we had here in our community around these planting songs, and you know, about sharing them. These planting songs are very old songs and have been passed down, and I would say that for a while there, they were almost in danger of being forgotten. But about 10 years ago, with the work of Donald Community Action and our elder farmers like Clifford Pueblo, who really lit the fire for young people to start growing food again and to start embracing that oidakam, him that lifestyle of growing food. We were fortunate to sit with elders, one particularly named Francis Manuel, but the late Francis Manuel from the San Pedro community, who was a keeper of these songs and who took the time to sit down with us and to share them with us. Along with these songs is a dance called the Jurkuna, and the Jurkuna are harvest dances that mimic the formations of birds and butterflies and the rain. And so that's also something that's strong here today. So it's my honor to share this planting song with everyone. And I send all of these good blessings and hope that these songs reach your oida, your fields and your plants. This first planting song is a song of encouragement. It's the first planting song that we sing when we put the seeds in the ground, the hoon and the hot, the squash and the corn. And the song is a lullaby. How you can differentiate a planting song is it has this little melody. It says, Iru ya aru. And that's the melody. We're singing to these babies, we're singing to these seeds, nurturing them and encouraging them to grow. And the lyrics in the song encourage the hod, the squash vines to reach the ends of the earth, to wrap themselves around the earth. And the hoon, where in the song we're encouraging the hoon, the tassels to reach the sky, or the tassels to touch the clouds. And so it's a really encouraging song, just like we would sing to the babies that we hold in our arms. And we sing this as we put the seeds into the ground. So this is for all of you, all of your guides, all of your seeds, your fields, singing to them and encouraging them to grow strong and to help nourish us and replenish us and continue those cycles. Iru ya aru, shashawanya kawa kama ho you oshanim mahamahakayona. Iru ya aru, shashawanya kawa kama ho you oshanim Mahamahachayona. Iru ya aru, shashawanya kawa kama hari hoshanema Mahamahachayona. Iru ya aru, shashawanya kawa kama Ohoni Oshanyema Mahamahachayona. Iru ya aru, shashawanya kawa kama Ahari Oshanyema Mahamahachayona. Iru ya aru, shashawanya kawa kama ohoni oshanyema Mahamahachayona. Iru ya aru. We thank you so much for bringing us here together today to celebrate what keeps us strong and what keeps us resilient, our foods, the good feelings that we have when we step into the earth, when we feel the earth in our hands, when we see what we're able to produce, what we're able to encourage to grow, and all of the different steps, that we enjoy the things that we see with our eyes, that we hear the wind when it's rustling through the leaves of our food, the laughter of our kids and our families when we gather to harvest and to process, and most of all to eat, and those good feelings, and that strength that comes from our food, all of the songs, all of the dances, all of these things that make us who we are and keep us strong as Indigenous peoples. We thank you for the continued cycles that we count upon and we trust upon. And we, as always, ask for forgiveness in all the ways that we need, and ask for continued strength and guidance and clarity, and most of all for rain, for those that need it, for those that need water, that need that nourishment, that we receive those gifts humbly, and ask for continued protectiveness and safety as well over our families and our communities, and that we have a good day today with good discussions and good things to come into our minds, into our hearts, to keep us strong and to keep us doing this good work. So, tapo. Tapo. So I have a little time besides the song and the words and the prayer, and I just wanted to take the time to share some of the knowledge that we have here in Autumn Hajumuriga. We are located about 200 miles south of Phoenix, Arizona, and about 65 miles west of Tucson, Arizona. Our lands lie on both sides of the US-Mexico border, and we're a desert people. Donalda means desert people. And right now we grow two main varieties of poon. There's the 60-day poon and the June poon. And the 60-day is pretty resilient, pretty amazing, able to grow and mature in 60 days, adapted to our short monsoon season here in the desert. So that's something that we're looking forward to. I was thinking about Hoon this morning, and I had to kind of laugh. I think one of the things that I don't hear too much, but we do talk about here in the community, is how our foods can't be talked about without talking about sexuality, I guess you would say. And in many of our Hoon stories, they center around Hoon Goody, Hoon as a male being. And one of the stories that we tell, there was a young woman who was really shy, and she was really quiet. And she was industrious, and she lived there with her family, and she helped take care of her family and did all of the things that a strong, hardworking woman would do. But they did worry about her. She didn't really do much besides her work. And again, she was unusually quiet. But Hoon Goody, he started to come to this woman. He saw how hardworking she was, how beautiful she was, and he liked her quiet nature. And so he started to visit her, and they fell in love, and they started kind of a secret relationship. But her family, they noticed these changes in her. They noticed that she started to become more outgoing, and they also noticed that she would sing during the day, and they could tell that she was happy, but they didn't know what exactly it was that was making her feel good. Until one day early in the morning, they went outside, and they went out to their wato, and the wato is like a ramada that we make out of saguaro ribs, mesquite wood, and different materials out here in the desert. And they saw a bow and arrow hanging from the wato, and they discovered the young woman, and Hoon Goody. And Hoon Goody was the one to give this woman the gift of Hoon. the corn and teaching her how to grow it and how to take care of it. And so a lot of times when the older folks, the elders tell this story, they kind of laugh, and sometimes they'll say, you know, we're censoring these stories a bit. But we also talk about, you know, how important it is to hear the raw stories, you know, for us to learn all these different ways of life, as you would say. And there's more stories that are kind of in line with that theme. And so it made me laugh this morning. It made me smile, you know, just thinking about our stories and the way that we interpret them, the way that we learn from them, and the things that they teach us, you know, and give us a good laugh too. I love that about our stories, and especially if you're listening to a good storyteller, you know, they have their ways of really bringing our stories to life and reminding us of our ways. And so I wanted to share that little bit of autumn Himadag, autumn culture. And again, I'm really honored to have shared this planting song with you. There are other planting songs that I hope someday in the future we'll be able to share with each other, whether it's online or whether in person. And just wish everyone a really good day, beautiful day for us to be together and to listen and to learn. So, Sapo from Autumn Hajuriga. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I was so happy to hear that song, and fortunate for me, I'm sitting here in my office at my desk, and I have some of the seeds that we're going to be preparing to plant. So I brought them closer to the computer to hear your song. Hopefully they will find an encouragement. But even when any of us as Indigenous people engage in that prayer or those songs for life, no matter where you're at, it benefits us all, even though maybe we're not aware of you know, what you're doing in your own homelands. It benefits us all, and not only us as Indigenous people, but others in this world. We don't. I'll say we don't discriminate. We care for all life, no matter you know, race or anything like that. So I was glad to hear the song, but also to hear that I know that the Octon people are engaged in that, you know, in those ceremonies, and especially for helping to encourage that rain to come to us. So thank you for that. What I wanted to, I guess, remind myself for today, we've got day 2 going, but one of the things that I wanted to, I guess, let people know is that in order for some events like this to happen, you know, like I said, I work for a nonprofit. I write proposals and try to find funding to support a lot of the work, including these meetings like this. And I was fortunate enough to get some funding from several different sources. One is the Novo Foundation. They've been very supportive of TANAFA's work and others' community work throughout the United States. And the Swift Family Foundation, they've been very, very understanding and supportive. I just wanted to make that mention. And we did, like I said, we're in collaboration with the International Indian Treaty Council, and they are finding funding and that support to do these collaborations. And I just wanted to let people know, you know, how some of these things come about. So here in the United States, I don't know if it's a something that's celebrated globally or not. I'm not aware, but I do know, like in U.S. and in Canada, tomorrow we're celebrating Mother's Day. We're remembering the sacrifices and the love and kindness we receive from our human mothers. And I'm fortunate that I still have my mother. She's 94 and going on 95, and still is very active. And so we're remembering our mothers, but corn is also a mother to us, and has been supportive, like I said yesterday, provides us nourishment, uh, and it provides us comfort, and everything that we as humans require from our mother. The corn mother can provide that. Even teaches us, if we are of a mind to listen to her and to obey those lessons that the corn mother teaches. Like I was saying, in some of the documents that I sent out, that we have stories of corn from that go way back from time of creation. And you know, we are as people, we're tied very closely to corn, our health and our wealth, to corn. So Amy mentioned that they in their territories they have a corn that can be planted and matures within 60 days, that fits within their monsoon cycles. And that's the beauty of corn, is that it has that diversity, not only in its appearance, but its I guess its personality or its temperament, you might say. Some corns I know grow as far north as 100 miles north of Winnipeg, Manitoba in Canada. I don't know how far north that is, but it's quite a ways north. So it adapts to extreme climates like that, but it also grows in very hot and humid climates. And yeah, again, that's the I guess the genius of our people, and the compassion that Mother Corn has for us as people, if we are willing to understand and work and provide those things that the corn needs. I've heard that when I've traveled into Central America, and one of our speakers today is coming from Guatemala, I've had the pleasure of meeting some of the farmers from down there and other parts of Central America, that they have that diversity, and in Mexico too, of corns. There's probably at least hundreds of what they call land races of corns in those areas, and they have that diversity of short growing seasons to very long growing seasons, uh, uh, low altitude to high altitude. I understand that there's some corns grown in South America that can be grown above 12,000 feet in elevation. One of the corns that I heard about in Guatemala, that's like I said, Amy was talking about a 60-day corn. They were telling me some parts in Guatemala, they have one that can mature in 40 days. And another one that they have in a different part that takes 9 months to mature. So such a diverse range of abilities. And each of those are designed, I guess, to address different climates and all of that. So, you know, we have to have those varieties with us to adjust to maybe the climate changes that we're seeing now. And also, you know, like we talked a little bit about the nutritional values of corn. Again, you know, there's so much more about corns, and I'm hoping that this 2 days provides some practical information, but also information that will inspire you to continue your work, but also to inspire others within your lives and your family and in your community to take up the study of corn, but also its sister relatives. I'm trying to look for my notations here. So in the Haudenosaunee stories, our territories are in what's now parts of New York State and into Canada. We also have communities that are cross borders, if you will.
Tenemos
Actually, one of the Mohawk communities sits right on over the border. So parts of it is in United States, the other parts in actually 2 provinces of Canada, Ontario and Quebec. So, you know, we have some of those same issues as the O'odham people there in southern Arizona, and perhaps others. But we have knowledge of what they call the 3 sisters, corn, beans, and squash, complete diet. And today we have Julian from Guatemala that's going to talk about their system of a milpa system of intercropping of these sisters together. There's more to it, but I've seen those fields both in Guatemala, Mexico, and in Belize, those intercrop systems. We practice that to a limited extent here on our farm here in Tesuque Pueblo with my kids. And if I get a chance, I'll pop up the background for that was Julian talks about the system that's very ancient and is probably one of the ways that we can be addressing nutritional needs, but also the environmental needs of the land and of the climate at this point in time. We have Julian coming on in a few seconds, and I'm not sure exactly how the technical part of that's going to work, because I think Sarah, she's with the Garden's Edge, is maybe going to be doing the screen sharing. So I'll leave it at that. And hopefully we can deal with some of the technical aspects of this particular part of the here we go. All right. Thank you. You're on, Julian.
Buenos días, ¿me escuchan? Good morning. Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Good morning.
Yes, we can.
Maltio chiwe kinito bahunchich nimalakikotemal chuin
Julian is speaking Mayan.
basiliwach baixurwi chewatinamit ishimuleu Guatemala. Maltio chiweche un espacio wajun anim kinito. Maltioch. Muy buenos días. Mi nombre es Julián.
Very good day to everyone. My name is Julian,
ustedes este día.
and I'm grateful to all of you for this day,
Quiere que estén sentadas
that you're hearing me from wherever you are,
en un
sitting
lugar de su casa.
in your room, in whatever place in your home,
Saludo desde Guatemala,
and I send you my
el
greetings
pueblo
from Guatemala,
Rabinal
from
de
the
Ayaní.
Rabinal
Es un
Mayachi
gusto estar
people.
con ustedes.
It's a
Me
pleasure
siento muy
to be
feliz
here with
de
you,
compartir
and it makes me
esta
very happy
experiencia
to
del pueblo
share
maya con
these
ustedes el
experiences
día de hoy.
of the Mayan people with you today.
Vamos a iniciar nuestra presentación
We will begin our
con este
presentation
clip que es el maya,
with
se
this
llama Anil.
glyph. This is a Mayan glyph
El dios
called
de semilla,
Aknil.
es el símbolo de
Aknil
la
is
semilla,
the day of
es
the
el
seed. It is
símbolo
the symbol of seeds.
que si
This
ustedes pueden ver los 4 puntos que tiene,
symbol, if you look at it, you can see the 4 points there.
del maíz,
Those signify the 4 colors of
el
corn:
amarillo, el blanco,
the yellow,
el negro
the
y
white,
también el rojo.
the
De igual manera,
black or
significa
blue, and
los
also the
puntos
red.
cardinales
The
del orbe,
yellow also
significa
signifies
también
the
los
4
4
cardinal
colores
points of the
humanos.
world, and it also
Quiere
signifies the
mucha
4
similitud con los
colors
hermanos
of humanity.
mexicanos.
It's
El
very
arcoíris
similar
es
to
utilizado en diferentes
our
lugares de
Mexican brothers and
Centroamérica,
sisters, and this glyph is used a
especialmente
lot
el
throughout
maya y
Central
el
America,
olmeca.
but
Conozco
especially
bien
Mayan
el
and
significado
Aztec,
del anil.
who know very well what the meaning of Aknil is.
Usualmente yo inicié con Cachualom, una organización
I
que
began
ayudaba mucho
Cachua
sobre
Alom,
cuidado de las semillas,
which is an organization that works on
aprendí muchísimo de ellos.
seed
Hasta que un
conservation.
día
I began working with them and learned a lot with them.
aquí trabajando con mi
And
comunidad,
now
con diversas
I'm working
familias
with
para
my
aprender
community, with
más de las experiencias
different
del
families
cuidado
to
de las
learn
semillas.
more about the experiences for their
Mesoamérica
experiences in
es
caring for the
conocido
seeds.
en la región donde vivimos, Guatemala,
Mesoamerica
México,
is the region that encompasses Guatemala
Perú,
and Mexico
una
and
diversidad de
down to
comida,
Peru
una
as
diversidad
well.
de
It
alimentos, lo
includes
que se ha
the
poblado a nivel
diversity of
mundial
food
en los últimos
uh,
años.
and that we find
En
throughout the
Guatemala
world
nos
today.
tenemos muchas plantaciones,
There
especialmente
are
el
many
maíz, el frijol, las
corn
calabazas,
crops,
los
beans,
aguacates,
squash,
y
avocados,
muchas
chili
variedades de
peppers,
alimentos
and many
que hoy en día se ha
varieties
beneficiado mucha
of
gente
food
a
that
nivel
today
mundial
have
sobre la
benefited
producción de
people
estos
throughout the
alimentos.
world by the production of all of these types of food.
Nuestros abuelos y abuelas
Our
también tenían una
grandmothers
relación
and
muy especial, ya
grandmothers and
que
grandfathers,
tenemos la
excuse
abuela
me,
Mucané,
had a great
otros que
connection to our
necesitaban
seeds. Here
una
is
abuela que
grandmother
inició
Ichkamel, one of the
con la
main
multiplicación de los
grandmothers
primeros granos del
who
maíz y
created
también
the
fue la
multiplication of the
agricultora
first kernels of
que
corn, and
envió
she was
durante
also the first
obtener
grandmother
los granos para
who had the
expandir o multiplicar en los puntos, en los 4
kernels, the
puntos
grains, to
cardinales.
expand and
Los indios
multiply them
nativos
throughout the 4
tenían 2
cardinal
gemelos
directions.
que se llamaba Hun,
In the first
Ahu
early times, there was a
y
twin called
Ishbalanque.
Hum
Estos
Ahum
2 gemelos
Ishbalanque.
estuvieron
These
en
two
una pelea,
twins
en una batalla, en el
had a battle
inframundo, en la oscuridad, pero cuando
in
ellos
the other
ganaron
world, in the
la batalla,
darkness.
el
But
premio que se les
when
dieron
they
a ellos
won the
fue los
battle,
primeros granos del maíz.
the
Entonces
prize
estos
they were
2
given
gemelos, Hun, Ahu,
was the first grains
Ishbalanque,
of corn. So these twins,
salieron
Hum Akum
ganando la
and
batalla.
Ichbalake,
Luego
won their battle, and then they were given the seed. They gave the seed to their grandmother, and it was their grandmother who planted the first seeds of corn. And that is how grandmother Ishmokwane took her stone and ground the first corn and sent it to the four cardinal directions. And that is why we now see the four colors of corn that we have throughout the world. You can see here on my table how beautiful the diversity of the seeds we have is, and how it simulates as well everything that we have, everything that you have as Native people in the United States, as well as the Native people in Mexico who also have the same diversity of corn. Our grandmothers and grandfathers had their own spiritual practices to give thanks to the supreme God of nature, water, the wind, the soil, the sunlight. We practice this because it is our culture that we have inherited from our ancestors who have left it to us, and we continue on with it. We hold ceremonies to give thanks for our harvest. We ask the rain to give us abundance. We ask for all to go well in the planting and the harvesting and planting our seeds. So, this is a spiritual culture that we in Guatemala practice. Our grandmothers and grandfathers have taught us how to use corn. We make tortillas. We make different types of food and dishes, such as tamales. There are many different dishes and drinks as well that we make. We make 9 things from corn in Guatemala. Unfortunately, in the last several years, we've had many problems. Such as climate change, as well as the promotion of other types of practices. But we have a lot of knowledge from our grandmothers and grandfathers. And you can see here the terracing practices that have been in this region for hundreds of years, and they do not have erosion because the water is well handled. The water is managed through this terrace system. We have all of these practices. In the Petén jungle, we have what we call tikal. The tikal are the scales or terraces that have not been damaged over many, many years. We continue our way of working with the terraces. There's a lot of diversity, and when we talk about planting the milpa, we have beans, and but it's not just those 2 or 3 things, the corn, beans, and squash, but also a great deal of diverse natural native plants come through this. They help us have a very diverse diet and cuisine from our grandmothers and grandfathers. And in the market, we can find many different products: tomatoes, banana, chili peppers, an endless amount of vegetables, legumes, and tubers. And all of this shows the diversity that the grandfathers and grandmothers practiced. With this diversity, without the use of chemicals, without the use of those very toxic chemicals. But today, our diversity is endangered by the large companies. Beans and tomatoes are in danger. Many years ago, we had 250 varieties of tomatoes in Guatemala. But today, with the companies and the chemicals, we only have 2 or 3 tomato varieties. And today, the companies that introduce a lot of toxic chemicals are having a great impact on us. One of these, an example of this is glycophosphate, which is used in Guatemala, and it comes from the Monsanto company. And it's not only the agrochemical companies, but also organizations. Organizations from the United States are invading. They are bringing many seeds to Guatemala and contaminating a lot of food. But what they are counting on is that we will not care about our natural seeds and rather will just obtain the seeds from them. But that food is really bad for our people. At the same time, we face many difficulties, and it's not just our diet and the chemicals, but also Guatemala suffered a lot from the internal armed conflict, the death of many grandfathers and grandmothers, death and extinction of many native seeds. During the 80s, the army cut down our corn. They burned our plantations in order to exterminate our native and Creole seeds. The Monsanto law, which has had a strong impact in Guatemala, passed laws against the Guatemalan small farmers, campesinos, and denied them permission to use their seeds. And we've said no to the Monsanto law. And thanks to that, so far, no law has been passed to prohibit our planting of our native Creole seeds. Regarding the consequences of this, everyone knows the consequences. You all know these consequences. If this Monsanto law is passed in Guatemala, we will lose all of the diversity of our seeds. The pollination will affect the native crops. And what will happen to us if we consume GMO foods? What will happen to our children in the future? All of this can affect our future. So it's important for us to understand the problems and the threats we face in our world. And many years ago, we began with just a small amount of seeds, and we started working in the fields with the production of the native Creole seeds. And this was a good start, what we began 15 years ago, because now, today, we are completely convinced that we have many varieties of native seeds and over 500 people who are conscious that the seeds from the companies are not good, but they come in to harm our native seeds. So we are now happy to have a good amount of seeds, and at the same time, our grandfathers and grandmothers transmitted this knowledge for seed conservation. There are special vessels to be used to conserve our seeds, and we call these the seed banks. Our climate is very arid and dry. But through this and the activities we carry out in Guatemala with the seed production and conservation, we have seeds that are strong, that can withstand drought, that can withstand climate change. There are times and seasons that are very dry, but our seeds have adapted to these changes. That's why we have achieved important advances and accomplishments. Here's some special examples. The Creole corn is corn from our people, from our communities, from over 150, 200 years. And this is that improved corn. This is that improved corn from the companies, which only comes to give us problems in the field. So this is very special to understand that the best seeds are our seeds from our grandfathers and grandmothers. Here we can see an example of what our seeds are telling us. This is amaranth. If you look at it, you can see the seeds should not be under the control of the companies. This is an example. This is what we see. This is in the United States, an amaranth plant fighting against the concrete and the cement. And what it symbolizes is the resistance that can be done and carried out anywhere. So we in Guatemala have begun our MILPA system. The MILPA system, what it achieves is diversity and the association with the corn and the squash and other native plants, such as amaranth. They all serve different purposes. The beans transmit nitrogen. The squash expands its leaves out and prevents weeds and from invading. But then also there are many other types of plants, call them weeds, that help the corn and help the milpa system to have more life in this system where the corn is grown. Here in my community, I'm working with people and I now have 35 people, 35 families who are working and struggling with the milpa system because they know that it gives good results, good outcomes, and it's good work for our communities. And we, by this method, can properly conserve our native seeds. Over these years, we have been producing better grains, better sizes, and this makes our small farmers, our campesinos, very happy because we're improving our seeds. And many times over the last few years, recently, we've seen a lot of harm, a lot of damage, erosion of soils that occurs in Guatemala. And in our projects, we're practicing ancestral knowledge. You can see here this lady with an A-frame structure. It's 2 meters high, the tall ones, and the small one in the middle is 1 meter. And we use a level. We use it as a level to level the soil. where on the plot where we're going to plant our corn. So you can see that we also have these trenches which work very well for holding the water, and it's good also during the drought times that the water is held in there, and it's good for our corn, beans, and squash. And we're also doing other activities, working with families and consciousness raising about our activities, especially about the importance of caring for our seeds and our spirituality as well, which is linked to these activities we do in Guatemala. As you see, here is the Milpa system, and you can see all of the little insects and bugs get their food here, all of the winged beings, the bees, the flies, the butterflies. It's a habitat that we provide in our Milpa system. There are beans, there's squash, and there's all types of variety of plants. And that's where we make this coming together. Our grandfathers and grandmothers told us on the day you plant corn, always think of your families, of your neighbors, and of all of the living beings that come to visit your plot. It's all very important for you to think about this because it is life. It's sustainability for human and animal life. See, you can see here the difference between a conventional plot and a plot where chemicals, toxic agrochemicals are used. There's no life. The soil is very poor. It's not a quality crop. That's what the companies want. They want these plots with no weeds, no other plants, but that's not our system. Our system is a diversified world, a forest of food, a plot where we can find our food available, both for us and for animals and for us as well as human beings. As you see, this MILPA system has multiple benefits, and that is what we do against the threats of the companies, against these transnationals. We work on our plots and we don't require donations of transnational food. This is a very special photo. That's my dad. His name is Daniel. My dad taught me how to care for the seeds, how to plant the corn. I learned from him. I know my dad is teaching the future generations, his grandchildren. He's teaching them how to clean, how to remove the husk from the corn and how to process it. And I'm so happy that I learned this knowledge from my father. And that's why I'm here talking to you about the importance of these traditional seeds in our families and especially for the Mayan communities in Guatemala. On August 15th, I was listening yesterday to our Mexican sisters presentation and thinking about the 15th of August and the celebrations we hold on that day. We're doing it now. It had been lost. it was no longer practiced. But 2 years ago, we began researching this. We began talking to our grandfathers and grandmothers, and they told us about this special day of food, which is August 15th. And now we're celebrating together with the campesinos. They bring different corn dishes. As you can see here, I really love this corn on the cob, the elote with squash. It's very delicious. Also, one of my favorites, this corn and the atole made from corn. And so this is how we're practicing a lot of this knowledge that comes from our grandfathers and grandmothers. This is an experiment I made. It's atole from hybrid corn, atole from the hybrid company corn. So believe me when I tell you I learned something about this corn. This hybrid corn does not condense. It does not have the same capacity as our natural seeds that achieves a good level of condensing. So this is some of the things we're experiencing. The best things we have in Guatemala are the seeds from our grandparents. In the Milpa system, carrying on the knowledge, the campesino knowledge. You see here the children, and that white thing there is a scale. We're weighing and measuring the amount of corn harvested in the Milpa system. And we also weigh the conventional corn, and we explain to campesinos what gives us greater amount, greater weight. And as we saw in 2020, the Milpa system was beating out the conventional approach. We had 1,000. We had 120 pounds in the Milpa system, and in the conventional system, maybe 50. Another example, we had 80 in the Milpa system and 40 from the conventional use. So this is what we're doing to show and teach the families that these agroecological approaches are very important for us to practice and to return to the past as our grandparents did it. We have a lot of diversity. As Clayton was saying in the beginning, the corn in Guatemala, we have the 60-day corn, the 2-month corn in Guatemala. If you watch the video at the end, you'll see my corn is the corn fills my table. I have the 60-day. I have
de que cuidamos nuestra diversidad de
the different
semillas.
varieties of corn, and that's why it's so important for us to protect the diversity of the seeds.
Es bonito, muy lindo.
This is it's very nice, and everything that we're doing is so beautiful.
Yo me siento muy feliz con el. Es muy
I
lindo lo que estamos haciendo en
feel
Guatemala.
very happy about it,
Estamos
and what
alcanzando
we're doing in
un nivel
Guatemala
de diversidad de semilla.
is beautiful because we are achieving a good amount of seeds that we're getting. We're conserving a lot of the diversity in many different towns and communities right now.
Espiritualidad es muy importante.
Our
Agradecer
spirituality
cuando
is very
nuestras
important
cosechas
to
ya
give
lo hemos
thanks
cosechado. Así es
after
que
we've harvested.
lo hagamos
This is how we do it. In the beginning, we ask for permission, and afterwards, we give thanks when we were able to harvest our Creole and native seeds. This photo shows a woman named Josefa. Her story is very beautiful. During the armed conflict in the 80s, she was forced to leave her house and travel to the capital, Guatemala City. After the armed conflict was over, she returned to her home and began cultivating her coffee plants. And for her, it was a surprise to her that when she was opening the holes where the coffee was, she found some vessels full of seeds. There were beans and corn seeds that her father had buried during the armed conflict. So when she returned, she didn't know that she would find those seeds. It was a surprise. And she said, "This is my father's legacy that she's left to me." And with many tears, she took those seeds and she cultivated them. And now she's cultivating that corn on her father's lot. And this is the work we do. A few years ago, we were in New Mexico and we met a friend in New Mexico. His name is Arden. He's Cherokee. He had his corn that he had kept for a long time. And then one day he gave us a little bit of it. And so he encouraged us, and we encourage you in Arizona and different places to continue with your seeds. Continue using your seeds. It's very important.
Having the blessing of the corn, we have the blessing of the corn for our future. And if we do not take care of our seed, we will die because we have no other diet for nutrition. We only have corn. So with this, all of you have your practices, you have your cultural practices. This is our identity. This is our way of life. We are people made of corn that we will always integrate it into our plate and our food on our tables. Not just with corn, but also with amaranth. This photographs that you are seeing here, this is in San Diego in Tijuana. This was one afternoon, we were together and there was a lot of pressure from the immigration. There were a lot of helicopters that were trying to intimidate us, so that all the people that were here at this class, they were all people that were undocumented, that people for the first time are learning about amaranth. And at the same time, they had never, ever seen the amaranth being planted and its plant. So we were teaching them about the stories of the grandmothers that gave them food to eat. But one day they suddenly saw the amaranth. And so these plants that we have amaranth, it also knows its soil. It has a memory and it knows perfectly what comes from the native people that live where you are too. Well, I'm coming to a conclusion of my presentation, and I think it's very important that you as men and women, youth that come that are different age ranges, all of us need to care for our seeds, and we are able to do this the way that we're doing it today. There is no disease, no border that can stop us. Technology is advancing, and in this way, because technology is advanced, we can share our experiences, our knowledge with you. And then what do we need? We need to continue planting our seeds. In this way, we will have sustainability, and we will also have our food security. At the beginning of the pandemic, everybody in the United States bought a huge amount of food. But I imagine that Clayton, I imagine Sarah, and many of the people that work in the agricultural fields, you weren't worried about that, about buying a lot of food. Rather, you were more concerned about cultivating, planting, and conserving your harvest. But other people, they were worried about having a food bank in their homes because they never would imagine that something like this would happen, like with COVID-19. So these are the lessons that we've learned. Thank you so much. This is my presentation. Thank you for giving me this time and space and listen to me. So, thank you.
Desearles que estas clases
And I
sean
hope that
en sus conocimientos de cada uno de ustedes.
that you'll have a lot of success in these meetings that we are having. And so
La diversidad de
here's the diversity of seed that I have on my table. Here's the corn.
un maíz amarillo,
It's a yellow corn,
blanco de
a
60 días,
white corn of 60 days,
un maíz chucuy. ¿No están viendo? Creo que es iniciar en video entonces.
The interpreter was just informing him that we are not seeing his video anymore.
¿Lo ves?
Rosalía necesita de cerrar su audio para que no interrumpa la presentación del compañero.
Okay, great.
Sorry, we were just having some,
¿Se puede ver?
he's trying to show, Mr. Julian is trying to show us a video.
¿Me escuchas?
Ahora sí, compañero. Sí, ahora sí.
Ah, bueno, perfecto. Bueno, les
So
decía.
he's concluding. So here I have the corn. Here's the yellow corn. That's 60 days.
Un maíz blanco de
It's
60.
a white corn of 60 days.
Un maíz chucuy
It's a chucuy corn that's yellow of 5 months.
y aquí
Mm.
tengo un
And
maíz
here I have
rojo
a red corn
9 meses
at 9 months.
y la forma que nuestros abuelos nos han enseñado.
And here, this is how our ancestors have taught us. Here you can see a,
Observan.
a plate of seed. You can see the corn, the beans, and the squash all together. In this way, we have the milpa system. We plant ayute, we have corn, we have seeds, and this is what we take to the field that's already combined. We have beans, we have 60 days corn, and this we have 90-day corn. And sorry, these are beans, and these are 4-month beans, 90 days beans. I'm sorry, the interpreter apologizes. There's a lot of interference from another channel. So thank you very much. This is my presentation from Guatemala, the native people of to present this to the native people of the United States. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, there's an interference from another seat.
Hay algunas, creo que hay algunas preguntas.
If there's any questions. Chris, can you please mute Rosalia Cho? Thank you.
I think at this
Sorry
point,
about that.
we don't have time for
Bueno,
questions.
put out.
We have to move on to the
Dice-
next, but that's great information. What I'm hoping that we can continue this dialogue
Okay.
somehow. I know there's, like I said, there's a lot of information being shared in a short period of time. The Julian's presentation really covered a lot in that short period of time. Hopefully we can figure out ways to continue this dialogue, you know, on, you know, I'm not sure exactly how we can do that, but we'll try to figure that out. A lot of what he was, some of the conflicts he was talking about is some of our histories too. And it's difficult to even talk about, or even to, I guess, remember those difficult times our communities have experienced and continue to experience. But knowing that we can rely on what our ancestors have provided for us to not only to survive, but to flourish, is inspiring to me. And I wanted to thank Julian for being with us today. I want to thank Sarah and the Garden's Edge for the work that they continue to do for a very, very long time. So I'm hoping people will continue to make contact through electronic means, or perhaps at some point in time we can meet face to face again. So thank you again. We, like I was saying earlier, you know, the corn is you can find throughout the Americas. So from Central America this morning, and we'll continue on into North America, into Canada. We have invited Carolyn Brandt. She lives up in a community called Six Nations, Ontario, Canada. Actually, it could be considered a refugee community also, from armed conflict back in when the United States was fighting Great Britain. Part of the Confederacy found refuge in Southern Ontario, Canada. And actually my grandmother was from that community. And it's a stronghold of our Haudenosaunee or Iroquois culture. And I invited Carolyn to speak with us this morning. I had the pleasure of traveling with her when we did the very first Corn Summit in Central America. And so with that, I'll hand the microphone over to her if she's here, and she can expound on her presentation this morning. Thank you again, Julian, and thank you, Carolyn, for joining us today. You have to unmute.
Okay, so thank you everyone. Sego kuego. Salasas yung gets. Wag nakto negen yang hagani aswagan wagidalo. Garinine hanuha techno gadion tosque. I am what's called an old-time seakeeper and what they call old-time farmers. Okay. First of all, I just wanted to thank Clayton and the gang for inviting me today, and I wanted to send a big gwekwe sego to all my Haudenosaunee relatives who are watching and all my other Indigenous relatives, and a special sego to all the people from Belize and Mexico and Oaxaca and all those other places that I've traveled to and been fortunate enough to visit with some other Indigenous farmers. So I'm sitting here in my earthship, and I just want people to be forewarned. I don't know why, but it keeps kicking me out, and I just got shut down during the last presentation a couple of times. So I'm up and running, so hopefully things will stay. I wanted to show a video, but I'm a little bit afraid. Maybe I'll wait to the very, very end. It's just a 3-4 minute video, but I might wait to the very, very end just in case I get kicked out. Anyway, I just wanted to introduce you. This is Mohawk Seedkeeper Gardens, and I am a retired school teacher. I was a teacher, Mohawk language teacher. I taught every grade from kindergarten to grade 8, principal of a school and all those kinds of things for over 35 years. And now I'm retired, and all I do is teach agriculture, which is my passion. And one of the reasons I became a teacher in the first place was because I had my summers and I could still continue agriculture. My family has always been in agriculture. We were one of the last subsistence farming families in the community, in Six Nations community. And we were fortunate enough that I've been fortunate enough to be able to continue to carry on some of the seeds of our, that my family had since we had our armed conflict, as Clayton said, that brought us to this territory. Seeds we've had since pre-settler to the North American and South American continents. So here at Mohawk Seedkeeper Garden, we are actually, what we kind of basically do is revitalize seed, okay? We're a fortunate community. We've maintained most of our ceremonies, our language. We're pretty strong in our culture, and we have a lot of our seeds. The only problem is we don't have a lot of growers anymore today. Most of the old ones are gone. I'm probably about one of the only ones left now with a majority of the seeds to go. But so I'm in the process of revitalizing and trying to teach the younger generation. I maintain, you'll see behind me, this is one of our corn vaults. This is in what's called an earthship. It is a totally off-grid structure, run on solar energy. I see myself freezing. I don't know. Can you still hear me, someone? There. Okay. So this off-grid structure, I put up just as a classroom teaching place, and it's also our huge seed bank. Because along with the revitalization of the seeds, a big part of it is just the increasing the quantity. Because I'm constantly, somebody calls me and says, hey, I need 150 pounds of this kind of seed or that kind of seed. And it's really difficult to get to grow volumes of seeds that people are now interested in having. So that's kind of one of our main purposes here. And we try to use any off-grid natural building techniques, which we also invite the community and our farm mentees to learn, to be able to live a little more lightly on Mother Earth. We are kind of getting to be a pretty urban community. So our young are getting the ball and chain of a mortgage around their neck, and that's not good. So we're trying to show different ways. So we really grow to increase seeds. We also have a huge model demonstration farm gardens here where we model the Haudenosaunee traditional agricultural practices. Okay. One of our biggest projects that we're working on right now is the adoption or the development of the Carolinian food forest, which for the Haudenosaunee people, the forest was probably 70% of its garden. The actual cultivation of the land was just for your things that came to us from our creation story, our corn, our bean, our squash, our potatoes, our, right? Those things were the few things that we cultivated, because everything else we were able to find in our very lush forest that we have here. So yes, we have lots of farm mentees and people that come to learn. Some stay for days, some stay for weeks. You know, it's just whatever they're doing. So today I wanted to, yeah, like yesterday I was talking about outside controls on our traditional people, which I think is something that we'll really need to, we need to talk more about today. Like more, I want to talk more today about our inside controls, because the things that we do within our communities are probably more important than the way the other organizations and governments and people, what they're doing. We know what they're doing to us, but we got to sometimes turn the camera around, look at ourselves and figure what the heck are we doing to ourselves? So that is kind of more my focus in my discussion, my talk today. Everyone knows, like we all know of traditional honorings, right? That's really our own traditional honorings, our own ways, things that you do, and things that you just don't do, right? Even though it's possible to do it, you just don't do it, right? We have many taboos. We have, all of our Indigenous people have ways of doing things that are different, that all honor the plants and the environment and the earth from the place that we come from. And that's really, because all of those different pieces that we have, okay, that creates our own worldview as Haudenosaunee people or as Pueblo people or whatever nations that you come from. And so just so to clarify, I am talking today about our Haudenosaunee agriculture and our Haudenosaunee situation. So I am a kind of a strong proponent for people to really start to think about and identify with their own systems, their own seeds. And if you get seeds from somebody, that you continue to honor that gift to you, that you maintain the name of those people, you maintain their story. And I think that's really important, because we can't, what they call pan-Indianism, and we have to be careful, because when we do that, it takes away from us. So another thing that we do, as you know, we have COVID. So I actually teach my own grandchildren. I have 9 grandchildren, and 7 of them are old enough. They come every day, Monday to Friday, just like regular school. And it's a garden school. It's an agricultural school. We teach the language. I do their basic reading and math and English as well, just so that they have those things. But that's kind of what we do here. And because for me, it's very important that, by the time my grandchildren are 9 or 10 years old, I want them to know how to feed themselves. I want them to know how to get water. That kind of basic things that most Indigenous kids all around the world can do. But when, again, we look inside our own communities, the average adult doesn't know how to do that here anymore. So it's important that we revitalize some of that teachings and learning. And generally grandparents, and I've been saying this all through COVID in my community, grandma and grandpa, dadas, it's time for you to step up. That's what we should be doing. Mom and dad are still trying to figure out how to get to work when the kids can't go to school. So it's time for us to step up and do a lot of the teaching. And I think that's really, really, really important for us. Now, the worldview that we know that we have has been greatly affected by colonization, right? By the historical traumas, all around our people, family violence, and even that simple fact that many of us are displaced communities from our original homelands. Although my people are at the farthest extent of our original homelands, coming up to Canada, in across the north of the border, we are still in what we would have called our beaver hunting territories. It was basically our hunting areas, not where we were really living and growing our foods traditionally. So that's where we're living now. So through displacement, people, we lose things. We lose, a lot of stuff. And that's really, really important for us to think about and remember that. So when we talk about our own situations, like our own nation's situations, today, I want to kind of think about our women and a lot of the women in their situation, and even what Haudenosaunee people are very, they are very much, what would you call a person that's in a routine. We do everything the same every year. And we assign people duties, and we are say, you're the faith keeper, or you're the keeper of this, or you do that. That kind of becomes a life journey. Okay, so we're very much in that routine. And that's really important for us in our worldview, that things go along that way. Because when a person leaves this earth, goes on to the next, we have to figure out, did they leave somebody with the knowledge that needs to get on to the next generation? And so that's kind of my role as a seed keeper. That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out who is going to be my next seed keepers. How am I, so I make an effort to try to teach, to try to get them out there to do that. We know we have very different agriculture, as was talked to us by last presenter, differences in our modern settler agriculture, which actually just ends up destroying the earth, right? And our traditional agriculture is meant to live with it, like to repair the earth, to make it better. We have wonderful evidence of that, that whole concept around the world, in what we call sustainable indigenous agriculture. Now, the United Nations has been starting to recognize sustainable agriculture and food security for about 15 years now. The only problem with us here in North America, Canada, the United States especially, and even South America, our American and Canadian governments have not gotten on board, okay, with a lot of the work that the UN is doing. It's not really, they're not pushing it enough. They're not recognizing the contributions when they were even specifically told by the UN Food Security Council, start working with your Indigenous people, So I was at one of the UN meetings, and it was crazy. The American representative who was given an example of Indigenous agriculture actually was reporting on agriculture that was happening in Mexico. They didn't even bother to look to their own Indigenous farmers for the examples for the government. And I thought that was really crazy. So even though, Canada and the United States are kind of a little bit behind along that track, that they really need to work with our Indigenous people, and not just to, steal our seeds, steal our knowledge, because sometimes they act like predators. Even you see a lot of other professions now that are basically, coming in and what do you have and what can I take and what can I sell? You see this a lot in the permaculture movement. I'm starting to see organizations, gardening organizations, using words like tribes and, things like that aren't even connected to our people. Chefs who are non-Indigenous coming in, taking our food ways, our ways of cooking, and, writing books and making themselves well known. So it's important that, we speak up to that, and we start to think, hey, no, we'll work with you. We want to feed you, but please, do it in a good way with a good mind. So the UN is asking, it is telling us, right shortly, 85% of the world will be fed by Indigenous people. The majority of those people will be Indigenous women. And that's just because of, much of it is just because of the life situations internationally around the world, where with wars and battles and all these kinds of things happening, that a lot of it, climate change, a lot of things are changing, right? And the situation is that way. So among the Haudenosaunee people, we heard a beautiful understanding of how corn and seeds and things came to the people this morning. Among the Haudenosaunee people, our belief teaches us that Sky Woman, she fell from the sky, and along the way someplace, so they say it in different ways, but they say one was a panther who was her boyfriend, who basically hands her a mortar and pedestal and the things that she will need to tend to her corn. And she descends upon the earth. And as she descends upon the earth, she dances and she nourishes and she makes it grow, right? And then she has a daughter, and the daughter actually grows corn from her breast, where our newborn would feed. And today, traditionally, milk from corn, there's a way to make the milk for newborn babies. It's actually our original formulas that we would have had for mothers that couldn't nurse babies. But our bodies mirror corn DNA. It's twin, and it's twinned with from what we say the sky and the water world. I'm a believer of Atlantis, and that's just because my mother was a believer of Atlantis, and that was a story she told us, and we kind of still believe that we are intertwined with that, with these other worlds. And the corn that nourishes our body, right from birth, from the milk, right to our death, the cornbread in our, we have the stories of, how we place the cornbread tie in the hand of a person when they're, laid out in their coffin, ready to go, because that's part of our teachings that they will need that when they go. We know that pollen is some of our most nutritious food. So all in all, as our earlier teachings have always said, we are corn and corn is us, right? Now, among us Haudenosaunee people, traditionally, we were the planters of corn. And planted and nourished corn, sang to it, we visited it. But the women kind of are being squeezed out a little bit particularly by modern society, because we've been replaced worldview that basically men are farmers, right? Not women, and
That's outside.
so some of the
They're
things that we
outside.
have to be conscious of and critical of is that this partnership for growing of corn and our foods is a partnership between men and women. And in our belief, our men have basic responsibilities, which is to lead, protect, provide, and model things. Okay. So they lead the process by preparing the land, right? They build the irrigation systems. That's what they do that's what our traditional way of getting the fields ready was happening. That was a job for the men. Okay. They protect the areas and defenses from animals or other people. They mark the territory. That was, again, some of the responsibilities that the men had. They provide the resources for our fields, for our animals, for our, even the fish guts that, I get delivered from the guys who are in the fishing societies every year. They actually bring me their fish guts, and we throw them in a pile of wood chips just to make our own manures and our own composts. And the men are also responsible for literally modeling the responsibility of the roles in agriculture. So they're out there and they got to get their stuff done, right? And then we can come in and do ours. Among the Haudenosaunee people, we are great readers of the sky world entities. Those are really important to us, both the male ones and the female ones. The stars are what we call our portals back to the sky, to our sky world, right? Back to our heavens. There's a place in there. And we talk about the stars, and like we call them the 7 stars. Again, it's a partnership, these 7 brothers, and it's a kind of a more of a male constellation in our teachings. But they are our annual guides when they watch those 7 stars move across the sky. And those have become our guides to the solstice, to the equinox. Those are our guides that teach us once they get into certain positions, then certain things are going to start happening. And once we look to some to know when they're in a certain position, those 7 stars are in a certain position, then we know the agricultural season is starting. Okay. And that's, tells the men time to get going. Okay. Now, the moon itself, as you learned from Steve McCumber the other day, planting is a planting role. So the moon has always been considered female for us. And her role is basically to support the agricultural system through the regulation of water, right? And of the nourishment that is needed. So that's how we read the sky, right? We talk about the thunders and the grandfathers, and there are many entities in the sky that help us understand that. But one of our really important things is what we call is our planting mindset. We talk about having a good mind, and we always work on that because we always call him just the other guy. We don't mean the creator, we mean the negative part of creation. So we talk about that, and it's really important for us because whenever you enter our gardens, we hope that you have a good mind, right? Whenever you physically touch the soil, it's even been, science has proven it, you touch the soil, it gives you positive energy, it makes your mind, it just makes you happy, right? So that positive mindset is critical. And so when we talk about the three sisters, the old way of talking about the three sisters is not just as a method of planting. Okay, that's true, and that's important, and that's part of us. But for us, the three sisters is actually a story for women. Okay, and our teachings on the three sisters are all about how we survive by supporting each other, right? The way those plants support each other, by sticking together, by loving each other and welcoming each other, by getting along. And that it's a reminder for the women, the actual story that we have of the three sisters, right? As opposed to what we call Junhekwan, which is all the sustenance. So, and it is actually has its own wampum story, and it's an old story. You don't hear it very often, but it helps the women remember the importance of that good mind, and remembering as sisters, we all have to work together to support each other. Okay. But nowadays we have to be really conscious. And this is one of the things that I notice in our communities when I say by looking in, is that sometimes we need to stop and to correct these imbalances. Like women have a great role traditionally in agriculture, but our communities are not always acknowledging and respecting our contributions. Okay. And for women, it's only to feed our families. Okay. It's not for us to get a great big $1 million tractor and make lots of money, right? Indigenous peoples' agriculture was about feeding their families, right? And sometimes that contribution, I know in my community, as we move more, as the people move along into more colonized or settler agriculture, that whole concept gets pushed away. So the little kitchen garden that grandma has for feeding the family on a daily basis kind of is not important anymore. And so when our tribal councils and things like that start talking about, supporting some kind of business and things, they never think about supporting, maybe to give each head of household female like a couple more chickens or a coop or anything like that to help support her in her agriculture. They talk about $1 million to do something agriculture. So that's what I mean by that mindset of the women in agriculture being pushed down a little bit, just because we get so caught up in the Western ways. And we really have to think about that. Because women, as I say, they do agriculture just to feed their families, right? And that's really important. We also say, I know my grandmother would always, she would just stand there because she had her huge kitchen garden right behind the house. But my grandfather did all, the stuff out in the fields. And she always used to be out there and walking around and looking and seeing what was happening. And I never really thought about that. But now we talk about this, women really need to return to the fields to see what is happening out there. If we're not happy with what's happening, we step forward and we do those things. And it's like in Indigenous communities, the women get upset, when the grandmas get upset, that's when things kind of start to happen. And they quite often are the first ones to stand up against big corporations or companies or just practices that are not good for them. So by literally watching, having the women return to the field, we want them to be both literally watching what is happening, and so in our societies, in the Haudenosaunee people, we have corn matrons. And I know in there's other nations that also have corn matrons or head corn matrons, and they may not be young enough to get out there and do anything, but their job is to watch and to see how it's being done and what's being done. And they are gravely listened to. But somehow or other, we're not listening to them anymore. They're just those old people, and we have to go back and reclaim that space for our corn matrons, because that's really, really important, because they're the ones who continue that spiritual connection, and they make mind get out to do with the way, the way your ancestors have always done that. And that's really, really, really important to us, So for many settler people, getting brown skin is not a positive thing, right? Because that's slave labor. But for most Indigenous people, we don't mind getting brown skin from the sun because we're working in the fields. It becomes a good thing, or it should become a good thing for us. We will also understand that our women need to return to the intuition to corn planting, okay? And in any kind of planting, because it only makes sense, by not to use machines and chemicals all the time. We know that, like we do have quite a bit of corn growing here, and, and we can do that with just, literally a stick, like it doesn't, you stick a stick in the ground, and that's all you need to plant corn, and I've seen that, all over North America, South America, Central America, just a stick. And that's the way our people could do it. Because it's important, when we talk about Three Sisters agriculture, sometimes that's a bit of a Hollywood image, because if you look at real traditional agriculturalists, you don't always see it that way, right? And I kind of think that archaeologists, when they did some excavations and stuff, that they kind of just looked at the end product. I remember so often the old people talking about the corn growers. And when we grow our corn, we don't build no great big mound. We have maybe a little bit of a one, then we put our seeds, because they need to get to the moisture. But once it's as high as our ankle, we hoe it. Once it's as high as our knee, we hoe it. And each time we do that, and we bring the soil, because all of you corn growers know you got to support corn because of all those secondary root systems, right? And then, we drop some of the bottom leaves of the corn stalk down to add, again, more mulch, natural mulch. And the old people would look, and they'll say who's taking care of their corn and who isn't, because if you tend to your corn, that's what creates that mound, and it keeps going. And a lot of our modern agriculture doesn't do that. They send the furrows through and things like that. It just doesn't do it in the same way. So having intuition and knowing when it's time to do things, like there's, each family has its own little idea. As I say, in my family, it was ankle and knee high. That's the way we were taught, and so other families would have other little ways of when they decided when they were doing hoeing or whatever it was. But knowing how to use plants to support our, your sustenance, because to make it earth friendly, and that's the way that you do it, basically, making it earth friendly, nutrients that the earth can replenish naturally, okay? Not reject in the form of some kind of imbalance. And in Canada, I live around the Great Lakes, and that's one of the greatest imbalances. It's one of our largest environmental disasters we have, is the runoff from all the agriculture into the Great Lakes that's creating what they call a green algae plume. And that's really difficult because it's literally killing the lake and the fish and everything that's in there. So using that intuition, sorting out and making sure that we're not creating more imbalances in what we do, right? Sorting seeds even is, people, I see some farmers, they may be growing our traditional seeds, but they'll just take off any of the seed, and they'll just throw it in the ground, and they use all their machines. They don't take the time, sometimes most women will handle that laborious task of actually sorting seed, right? And making sure they have the really good quality seeds. So sometimes that those kinds of tasks, women will do them because they live for that kind of thing, that they live for them like their own children. Okay. So when you grow pure and a healthy seed or in a good mind, it creates this good mind and this good body, right? And all that, and that comes from selecting the best seed so that you move forward with what it is that you're wanting. It also is kind of it's a way of actually breeding the new varieties, right? It's selecting those things and the qualities that you want. And every time we start to breed those new varieties, we're actually creating new nations and new relatives. And so taking care of your corn as you would take care of your nation is really important. We are people of corn villages. That's what we are. Indigenous agriculture, food security, it's a huge undertaking to try to say, I'm going to feed a nation, right? But as I say, women, they birth corn in the same way that they birth their nations, their own children, through that planting process and through that nurturing those things in the field. And that's where our little niche is. Like, we don't have to do all the work. The men help us and support us in a lot of those other ways, but we have to, traditionally, this is the way we did it. And we could take our children to the fields and we could, work on those things. So it's important that we continue in our communities to make space for women to be at the table, to be in the room, to talk about the parts of the process that we traditionally did. So you need to break it down. And as we say, we take the whole process and we need to break that down and concern ourselves with the feeding of our own, what we call in our communities, we call them our clan families. That's who we're concerned with, because all those clan families go together to make up the nations that we have. So that's about all I had to say today. I know we're getting along in the time, and perhaps I'm not sure about showing my video just because I'm kind of concerned about getting kicked out. So thank you very much, Nyawagoa, and I'll turn it back to Clayton.
Thank you, Carolyn. The experiences and the knowledge that was being shared today, I guess, easily transcends our borders, our artificial borders between the different countries that have been established since the arrival of colonists, and our similar experiences as Indigenous people. I actually, as you were talking, I got a call from Chris. He had to leave. He's the tech person, the main host. He had a family emergency, so I believe he may be gone. And
I'm still here, Clayton.
oh, okay. It's great. We have our break here, and were you going to show that video, and then we come back? If we can break up into the 4 rooms again for these afternoons. It looks like we have all our presenters logged on already, so if we can do the break and then go into our 4 areas. Okay, we're starting the video again. Thank you, Chris.
Long ago, one of our brothers from across the sea was talking to one of our leaders, and he said, "You speak of your sovereignty. What do you mean by that?" He went into his lodge and he came out, and he had in his hands corn. And he went like this. He said, "This is my sovereignty. If you're able to feed yourself, you're sovereign."
We work the whole circle of food sovereignty. We plant the food and we talk to the plant. When we harvest, we start out with our elders list. That's our first priority, to make sure they have healthy food. And then we go through the rest of the community. Everybody's children are all of our children, and everybody's elders, that's all of our elders. It's time. Food sovereignty is a must. It's the food that's going to save us, because it's the food that's always helped us to stay together, sustaining not just ourselves, but all of our people.
We're proving that money doesn't rule the world. It's food that rules the world. And that's why I got involved, Plus I like enjoying playing in the dirt, I'm always dirty. So my dad has type 2 diabetes, which is, it's easier to control with food, but he still loves potatoes and starchy stuff, so it's hard to get him to like foods other than traditional foods.
We had to go back to our traditional foods because we weren't healthy without them. Our spirit wasn't healthy, our bodies aren't healthy. And we have to plant more. We have to get ready for these changes that are coming.
You know, with climate change, and I heard a better term, climate chaos, because everyone's having a really hard time predicting what the season's going to be like, right? And if you have these land races that can have made those adjustments over the millennia, that memory, I'll say, in them to make those adjustments. You'll hear other, maybe commercial farmers talk about yield in a field, bushels per acre, right? And they say, well, this hybrid or whatever it may be will produce X amount of bushels per acre. But they're nutritionally deficient. And so I don't think anyone has yet looked at these corns especially and figured out how much nutrition per acre. There has to be a way that we could get these fields, especially the cornfields, designated as sacred sites. If our fields somehow do get assaulted by a GMO or something, we'd have more of a protection as a sacred site.
I forget the other verses.
It's a very potent form of activism and prayer when we put seeds into the ground. When we turn to the very hopeful act of planting a seed, we sort of move towards a balance of choosing hope over fear. We choose to be a survivor instead of a victim. The seeds that I carry, it's a miracle that they're still alive. You know, there were some seeds that were whittled down to just a tiny handful that were carried with families because of the displacement, the loss of land, the residential schools, the imposed shame, you know, all of these implications of colonization. And our own cultural memory, our own remembrance, our own understanding of how to plant seeds was also the same way. You know, whittled down to just like little handfuls of memory, of knowledge, of an inkling of what was, you know.
They say that a lot of the families used to come together and plant, and it was a collective effort, and they would all help one another. So families from different clans would all come and gather on certain times and plant. My mother and even my father, they have these memories of this whole valley was cornfields and this whole valley was food. When I see that land, I'm like, wow, like, how was that?
The seed bank is a living thing. It's not a vault to store things and leave it there and say, well, 20 years from now, people in the future, they'll have seed. They might have seed, but they may have totally no knowledge because you didn't live part of it. You're not making part of it alive. And if the seed has been here 30,000 years, it all happened without the seed bank.
It will carry on if we keep the seed trade going, keeping all our strains alive. In the event that our crop fails here, our seed will be alive in another area. A seed bank within ourselves. We are the seed banks.
Corn, the seed, needs that care just like a child, an infant. needs that care to be able to grow strong and healthy, and that it becomes something that's going to nurture us.
I equate the health of our communities with the health of our landscapes. Every time we have a precip action, we have whole hillsides, it's eroding away. And you look at the health of our communities, we have lots of diabetics, lots of different types of illnesses. And so I say that we bring our people out here and start healing our landscape, and at the same time we start healing ourselves. We're talking about corn, we get up and we're using the corn to pray. A lot of the people in our communities, their first meal is a tole. Corn is a way of life for us. This is our seed bank.
It's a customary thing to come in and knock at the door, and whatever spirits are around, just greet them that way. And that's how we feel about this place is, so many people come in here, and, people's spirits are here in this building. And like I said before, a lot of people have come through here and helped put their hands on the mud, so, or on the seeds, helping clean the seeds. It's nice and warm up here, and down here it's nice and cool.
So this is all same like the adobe. And
Yeah. Well, this one is those tire bells.
The tires.
Yeah, you can see how they sit on top of each other. The corn that you see that we've grown through the years. This is the blue corn. Hopi blue corn.
Thank you for that video. I put in the chat that was produced by Braiding the Sacred, and Leah put in their website. I guess it's a website. They've done quite a few more other videos that can be viewed over the internet. Again, I'm not sure if Chris is still with us.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so I guess we'll break into the rooms. If you can tell us who, what, where, and when.
Yeah, so we're gonna have 3 breakout rooms, but the main session that everybody is in now will be room 1, which you can see on the agenda is going to be restoring and saving seeds. So if you would like to participate in that room, please stay in the main session. That way we're able to have interpretation. There are 3 breakout rooms that have been created. Room 1 will be adapting to climate change. That will be led by Leah Zeiss. Room 2 will be restoring and protecting soils. That will be led by Janine Yazi. And room 4 will be, or actually, sorry, room 3 will be traditional corn foods and nutrition, which will be led by Julio Saki and I believe Ruby Chimerica. So if you can see on the bottom of your screen, you will see an option to select a breakout room. And also one other thing is that we would like to ask for each room to assign a designated note taker. What we want from these breakout rooms is to come out with some recommendations from the session that will be brought back into the main session after the rooms are done. So please, once you join your room and when you get everybody in, assign a designated note taker, and then that person can also share the outcomes from that session when we come back together into the main session. Each presenter will have, if there are 2 presenters in each room, you'll have 15 minutes to present. But if there's just 1 presenter in 1 room, then that person will have 15 to 30 minutes to present as well. But we want to make sure we have at least 30 minutes to discuss what was presented and to come out with the presentations. This is an interactive breakout room session. So get your questions ready for the presenters. And yeah, so rooms again, main session. If do not join a room if you'd like to stay in the main session, which will be protecting and saving seeds. Room 2 will be adapting to climate change. I'm sorry, I should also introduce the presenters for room, the main session. Chastity Salvador from Acoma Pueblo. She will be presenting along with Berenice Sanchez Nawa. She will also be presenting in the Restoring and Saving Seed session. Again, room 2, adapting to climate change, Leah Zeiss. Room 1 is going to be adapting to climate change. Room 2 is going to be restoring and protecting soils. And room 3 is traditional corn foods and nutrition. So join your rooms now. And if you would like to remain in the main session, you will be attending the Saving Seeds room. So
Great, thank you.
The interpreter wrote in the chat the instructions of which room you want to join. The names of the room, the number and the names of the room are there in the chat if you want to decide which room you'd like to join. There'll be interpretation in the main room. Thank you.
Presenters and myself in this room. And sometimes it takes a few minutes to figure out how to switch to the room. So we have 2 presenters.
Yo estoy lista y no sé quién es Chastity.
I'm ready. I don't know who Chastity is. I don't know which one of us will start.
Hey, Chastity, are you here in the main session?
Hey, I think I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, you're coming in clear.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I have you presenting first on the agenda. Are you prepared?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Then the floor is yours. So actually first, so remember this room we need to have a designated note taker. So if somebody can do that, volunteer for that, that'd be very helpful. And the main notes that need to be taken are just the recommendations that are brought up at the end of the session. You'll
How
have
much
15 minutes, Chastity.
Okay.
And then you can pass it over to Berenice.
Okay. Okay, awesome.
Gracias. Pero no sé si quisiéramos primero
Great. But first, who's going to be the note taker? Because yesterday we didn't choose a note taker, so I don't want that to happen again, because then we didn't note down the proper recommendations, and then we weren't able to really give precise recommendations. Does somebody want to volunteer to be a note taker? Sorry, Chastity, to step in like that, but I just want to make sure we choose a note taker. Does anybody? Oh, Martha, you'll do it. Martha, are you?
Hi, Leah. It looks like you're the only one in here.
Yeah.
Oh no. Okay, I am going to step back into the main session, and I'm gonna see if we can get some people to join you in this room.
That's okay.
Yeah,
It's really okay. No,
yeah, well,
it's fine.
we need people to be in this room, because we really need the outcomes from this session here. So
okay.
Let me try to get some people to join here. Give me a second. Okay, hopefully we get some people to trickle in here. I just put a message out to everybody.
Okay.
if we can't get anybody in here, what we can do is since Janine Yazi doesn't have a co-presenter, we can switch you over to her room. Climate change and soils are both pretty related topics, so
Okay.
are you fine with that?
Yeah, my presentation is pretty long.
Okay.
But I can try to make it shorter to fit in with her.
Okay. Yeah, I would like for you to present your whole presentation. That would be best, but you know, we're not getting anybody to join this room here, which is
Yeah, I
interesting.
mean, I
I was
have,
not expecting for this to happen. So
yeah, no, it's hard to tell what people are going to be interested in. And there was a
yeah.
climate conversation yesterday that was pretty good.
Yeah, and I think the climate change room we did yesterday also had probably the lowest attendance in there as well. So
Yeah. I can send my the link to the YouTube recording because I did a very similar presentation for Clayton a few months ago. If anybody wants to watch that later. But other than that, I mean, I can try to
yeah.
edit this down quick and join the other, but she's probably planning on doing a longer one too if she's in there by herself.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. What can we do here? So would you prefer to go into the other room and present, or would you prefer to maybe just be a participant in a different room if no one joins?
If no one joins, I would go hang out with my mom because my mom's in town visiting me.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you know, I mean, maybe that is what we're gonna just have to do because yeah, I don't think we're gonna be able to get anybody to join you here. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm sorry that you guys aren't going to have as many outcomes in the climate area.
Yeah, you know, that's okay. We'll have to do a whole session on just climate change hopefully in the future, and then we'll invite you back on. So
Sounds great.
I'm going to then there's not really a way for me to actually close your room.
Oh, okay.
So you may just have to just log out. I'm gonna put a message out just saying that room 1 will be closing due to no participation. Yeah, I don't see anybody joining here. Okay. All right, Leah. Well, I'm sorry this happened to you. Yeah, I did not expect for this to happen, really. So,
It's totally fine. I
okay.
honestly feel very tired and kind of out of it today, so I was like
Yeah,
really pulling it together to do this. Now I can
yeah,
go relax.
I'm really pulling it together to do this now too. I'm trying to deal with the family emergency at the moment and do this at the
Oh
same
no.
time. So it's a little challenging, but
Sorry to
thanks
hear that.
for yeah, no, yeah, it's life, you know, life happens, and you know, I'm just a little upset right now, but I gotta make sure that I leave this in good hands here. So thanks for accepting the invitation, and we would love to have you back on again sometime soon. The International Indian Treaty Council actually has been hosting a weekly webinar series, which we just wrapped up about a month ago or so, but we're planning to restart the series again in July. And we usually have sessions on climate change or topics related to that. And we definitely would like to get you back on, and we can compensate you for your time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to participate and help out any way I can, and I'll keep you in my prayers. I hope everything is okay. And
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, good luck with
Okay.
everything.
All right. Well, you're free to leave this room here. So enjoy your time with your mom. Thank you, and tell her thank you again for her presentation.
Oh yeah,
We got a
she
lot
had
of
a great
good
time.
we got a lot of good feedback on that one. So
Good.
yeah.
I'll let her know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All
See
right.
you.
We'll see you.
Towards food sovereignty and building upon our food system. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about my journey. And Saving Seeds has taken me to many beautiful Indigenous communities. And a lot of what I'm finding is that the importance of saving seeds is the medicine, that it provides for the people. Both the poetry, meaning that there's so much truth to be revealed in sage saving. I think saving, sorry, I'm saying it funny, but I think there's so much that we uncover within ourselves, uncover within our families. They talk about healing a bunch of like generational trauma or historical trauma in our communities. And I think you can only do that when you really sit with the truth, when you put the truth out on the table. And something about planting the seed, to growing it, to cleaning it, to praying to it, to being with it, to talking to it, to really hold it close to your heart in a way that that you would children, is really, I think, a process of truth and a process of growing and a process of constant hope and inspiration. There's all these things about planting the seed as planting some hope. And so, that's a little bit about my work and a little bit about my journey. I'm not sure if there's any questions or how this will go, but I wanted to share that with you all. So thank you. It's really hot in this truck.
Bien, entonces después de mi presentación hacemos preguntas, comentarios. ¿O alguien tiene algún comentario, alguna pregunta sobre la presentación de Chastity? Bien, entonces voy a iniciar con mi presentación. Ahí está. ¿Sí la ven? ¿Me escuchan?
Yes, we can.
Ok. Bueno, sembrar es el primer acto de defensa y de protección de las semillas. Una semilla que es guardada, que es almacenada, tenderá a perder su capacidad de reproducirse. Algunas duran más, algunas duran menos, pero al final de cuentas, si una semilla no es colocada en la tierra, si no es sembrada, si no es cultivada, dejará de ser semilla. En esta fotografía estamos viendo a una familia del sur de Veracruz. Es una fotografía que para mí representa la resistencia ante la invasión de los agroquímicos. El señor que ustedes ven al fondo, que está cubierto casi con las hojas del maíz, es un señor que durante toda su vida estuvo sembrando maíz con agroquímicos y que llegó el momento en el que su nariz le apestaba. Su nariz se le estaba pudriendo y fue al médico y el médico le preguntó que cómo era la manera en la que él sembraba, que se utilizaba agroquímicos y él le contestó que sí. Entonces este médico le dijo que él ya no podía seguir sembrando. No le dio ninguna alternativa. Sencillamente el médico le dijo al señor que no podía seguir sembrando. Y este señor entonces vivió durante varios años sosteniendo a su familia solamente con la pesca. Es una comunidad en la que hay una laguna, pero esta laguna está actualmente muy contaminada. Hay minería en las zonas altas, entonces peces que sacan de ahí son peces que están contaminados. Y al momento de conocerlo a través de un proyecto de Alianza Milpa, este señor decía, yo quiero volver a sembrar, quiero que mi familia vuelva a consumir el maíz, la yuca, todas las plantas que podemos cultivar. Y su parcela estaba abandonada, entonces con este proyecto empezó él por buscar sus semillas. Él ya no tenía semillas guardadas, su familia dependía de la compra de maíz presumiblemente transgénico, de maíz comercial que llega de Estados Unidos a través de los mecanismos de importación. Y con ese maíz su familia consumía tortillas o preparaba alimentos tradicionales. Entonces tuvo que empezar por conseguir semillas nativas, porque fue parte de lo que se hizo hincapié en este proyecto. Y ahí vemos un tipo de maíz que está agarrando el muchacho que tiene playera roja en la esquina derecha. Este muchacho está agarrando una mazorca que es pinta y que no es valorada en el ámbito comercial. En el ámbito comercial es sumamente apreciado el maíz blanco o el maíz amarillo, pero los maíces de colores son despreciados en este ámbito. No tienen ningún valor en términos comerciales. Pero para las comunidades este es un maíz muy apreciado. Por eso comento que sembrar es el primer acto de defensa y de protección de las semillas, pero al mismo tiempo también es un acto de defensa y de protección tanto a nuestra tierra y nuestro territorio como a nuestras familias. Aquí vemos también cómo las niñas están caminando, están alegres dentro de la parcela. En la botella que tiene la niña que está al frente de la fotografía, hay chapulines que son parte también de los alimentos tradicionales en México y que aportan un muy buen nivel de proteínas. Tienen cargando yuca entre sus brazos, yucas muy, muy pesadas, y es parte de los alimentos con los que están actualmente enriqueciendo su alimentación. Vemos plátanos y vemos otro tipo de plantas, de quelites que están alrededor de la milpa.
Of leafy greens known as quelites, which are part of the milpa. The seeds that need to be reproduced, it should be part of the traditional diet, part of our traditional activities and taken care of by our families. Caring for our seeds means knowing how to select the seeds that will be planted, preferably not GMO seeds. And what I'm saying is that we should take care of what we put on our plots. And not only that, we need to be aware of what's being planted in our territory and in close by territories, because pollen is transported through the air and the wind, and it can contaminate our crops with GMO varieties. We must respect also the lunar cycles for planting and harvesting and preparation of the land. This doesn't only mean conserving our seeds doesn't only mean keeping them in a vessel and making sure that they have a germinating capacity. It also means preparing the land properly, and together with our traditional knowledge and the medicinal plants should also be part of our thoughts, because these medicinal plants hold characteristics that are highly valuable. For example, in Mexico, we have a plant called pericon. It is a type of anise that is used in different ways. It can be dissolved in a solution, which is very good for pulmonary disease. It can also be used as a tincture, and it can be used also to conserve the corn. It can be, we see also on the fires, on the bonfires, sometimes we see when they're burning a bundle tied up of the pericon, which will provide some protection against different pests and diseases. And this also helps to protect against fungus as well. And we must also provide nutrients to our soils and territories, and not forget the traditional way that the soil should be cared for. Many families, including mine, during milpa cultivation, people seek out chemical urea-based fertilizers. This was promoted as part of the Green Revolution and industrial agriculture, and to stop using traditional natural fertilizers, and people wouldn't leave these debris on the ground that can get in the way and that we destroyed by tractors. But we must revitalize this capacity and knowledge to care for our soils. As we were saying yesterday, we must remember the difference between a milpa and a cornfield, and the use of the squash and the beans and the corn together prevents the use of the chemicals, pesticides, and herbicides. And also a frequent question people have is, how can I fight weeds if I don't use agrochemicals? And the answer to that is the squash, because the squash, with its tendency to grow and stretch out over the earth, helps to prevent the growth of bad weeds. Also, the water is very important, and our prayers and ceremonies and requests for good water are always important. The use of irrigation in our communities, for example, we have the iodinized water that comes from the mountains, and it provides the water to 5 communities in the basin, and these communities share their knowledge in a community way. And we must also talk about restoring our ceremonies and the sacred concepts of life. Our seeds remain alive through the songs that we sing, such as that beautiful song that Amy sang this morning to the seeds, to encourage them to bud and sprout in life. At the same time, also, we need to understand our practical and knowledge and traditional knowledge and recover this with recover our millennial ancestral science and knowledge within this colonial context. It has been characterized as myths and legends, and much of our indigenous knowledge has been characterized that way, in a negative and pejorative way, by Western science. So part of valuing and understanding our traditional knowledge is finding the place within these legends and our own beliefs where that hidden knowledge is. For example, for the Totonaco people, like these three men here, holding the corn cobs in their hands, it's important to plant 3 corn seeds for each plant without regard to how many squash or beans. Someone once asked, why 3 seeds? Why not 2 or 4? Why does it always have to be 3? So what he did was he divided his plot up into 4 quadrants. In the first quadrant, he only deposited 1 seed. In the second, 2 seeds. And in the third, 3. And in the fourth quadrant, he used 4 seeds per hole. That's how he planted his milpa. He mixed in the beans and the squash and gave the same care to his milpa with the 3 seeds. And what he found was, with the one with only 1 seed, big, giant, fed plants were not growing. They just didn't sprout in that quadrant because they needed to be accompanied. Also, the birds came to that plot and they would take the seed. In the second quadrant, it didn't grow well either. Some plants did grow, but normally they didn't grow properly. And in the third quadrant, he saw the best production where the milpa was level, the color looked good, the shape, they were well-fed plants and they looked good. And then in the fourth quadrant, the plants were all jumbled together and they didn't grow well either. So there's a logic to this concept of 3 seeds. And so frequently with our peoples, perhaps with yours as well, I don't know, these legends exist that hide certain knowledge. The Yaquis say 3 corn seeds because 1 is for God and 1 is for the owner of the milpa and the other is for the woods, the forest. And in the pre-Hispanic times, some things that we have forgotten about is that the rows of the edges of the milpa were left for people to walk on the sides of the milpa, and it would be no problem if they cut some they cut some corn off of one of those rows without ever being accused of stealing anything. This was from the pre-Hispanic times that was practiced in some of the towns. But normally, our practice is we don't want our neighbors to steal our corn. But if we go back to these millenniary practices, we understand that these are laws to avoid hunger in our communities and to recognize the right to receive something in sharing and the importance of sharing as well. Within this concept, the seed that is for God is the seed of gratefulness, the seed where we remember that corn is sacred and that corn, while it is also a gift from God, it is God also. And the seed for nature, for the woods, is that seed so that the birds, the mice, and the snakes can also eat, and so that everything in nature, in the woods, also has food to eat. So if we worry first about God and about the woods and nature and about our neighbor who walks by, then we all have corn for everyone. So we must care for the soils, not only of our plots, but our entire territory, as well as our water and our air. So it is important and fundamental for us to continue to state that our territory must be free of GMOs, free of mining, free of dams, free of rampant urban development, such as the development that came to my community in 2012 that we fortunately were successful in fighting. And we want to be free also of false solutions. These false solutions to climate change seek to use corn not as food, but as fuel. And some of the other actions that are important include restoring our traditional methods of seed conservation and storage. This is fundamental because, for example, in my community, there are people who no longer remember how to care for the seeds if they're not using those chemical pastes that they sell for them to use to conserve seeds. These photos that show these enormous clay vessels. This is inside of a cave, and you can see this. This is a photo of it's the ants. Remember, it's called the ants. Remember, in some of the stories about corn, it was the ants who took the corn and hid it in their ant nests, or the corn seeds or the teosinte seeds, and they kept them and they gave them to human beings. So these large containers, they have grass inside of them. They have an open mouth at the top, and it's no more than, and they have also an opening no more than 20 centimeters wide in the bottom. That my community still builds these. They're called coscomates. It is a method for storing corn that the Spaniards discovered when they came to our territory. They found so many of these things in this area that is now near Mexico City for storing amaranth, squash seeds, corn, so many different things. And they were capable of keeping the seeds for over 20 years without the seeds being damaged or eaten by mice, because the mice, if he comes into the bottom here, once he tries to go up, he falls and he can't reach the higher part. The hole on the right side here, or this image C here, is a coscomate outside that you still see in Tlaxcala in Mexico. It's covered with grass or thatch, and you can see that they're very pretty and well made. These ones, they are more simple, the kind that are used in my community. Here in this image B, this was the type that was used indoors in homes and houses in a special room dedicated to keeping the bean seeds, where we would have like 3 to 5 holes like these, and we would have a very abundant production in our traditional milpa system. So it's really important for us to reconnect to our traditional knowledge and to understand that it is possible and we can continue to conserve our seeds without any chemicals. Other solutions involve using seeds that are adapted to climate change conditions. I was listening to Clayton speak about this yesterday, and I also was thinking about this at the first Indigenous Peoples Conference on Climate Change, and if these scenarios already exist as scientists are predicting, and if they're telling us what types of climate effects our territories will experience in the next 5 to 10 years, we can seek out the seeds that will respond at the time to those climate conditions. Perhaps the seeds in 5 or 10 years will not have that ability, that capacity to adapt so quickly, but perhaps there are seeds that can respond to those conditions that we can adapt and develop in our territories, so they can adapt to the new conditions in the soil and the water and the things we will experience. It's important for us to keep our commitment as guardians of the seeds. Guardians of seeds are not the owners of seeds. They freely exchange them, and we should use community seed programs. Part of what we're doing in our territories and in my community is the signs, the pioneer signs in our plots for experimental plots.
Otra acción tiene que ver con recuperar, reproducir y conservar nuestras semillas.
Another action is related to recovering, reproducing, and conserving our seeds and ensuring the local provisioning of seeds through seed sanctuaries. I remember 5 years back, during 3 consecutive years, the milpas essentially lost production because the first year was very dry, the second year also, and then the third year, it rained so much that it was impossible to harvest in December. They were very moist and humid, and so my neighbor lost her seeds, and in the 4th year when she wanted to plant, she couldn't find any seeds left in her house. So she had to use what was on hand from the government program that provided hybrid seeds. And she experimented with them. And when she harvested them, she realized that those seeds produced a very thick cob with almost no kernel on it, no corn grain on it, and the flavor of the grain that was there wasn't very good. It was sour and wasn't very good. So that corn couldn't be made into masa dough. The tortillas didn't work right. It wouldn't stick together. They wouldn't inflate on the griddle, the comal, and they were only good for feeding the cattle. It wasn't our corn. So that's why it's so important for us to maintain and ensure local provisioning through seed sanctuaries and through seed exchange. When we have good seeds in our plots, the poor deficient seeds or the hybrid seeds tend to spread their characteristics. And so it's important to ensure that we have good quality native seeds in our territories. And it's also important for us to recover our traditional gastronomy and cuisine because it has a real value, a true, practical, palpable value, the use of our traditional cuisine in our territory from our people. I want to show this video now. It hasn't been edited. It's something we produced in support of the Alianza Milpan. That's the project I was talking about yesterday. The community is called Santa Maria Cuquila. It's in Oaxaca, in a dry area that gets little rain. It's near the mountainous, hilly area where they practice traditional terracing in the agriculture. But when the tractors came with the Green Revolution, people started to destroy the terraces in order to get the tractors in. And now it's a zone that has a lot of erosion because when it rains, they can be torrential rains that can just wipe out the earth underneath. These young people are young Indigenous professionals. The four of them are, they speak their language. Well, there's four. One of them's not in the photo, but it's two married couples who have children, and they felt also great pressure to leave and migrate like many of their uncles and other family did. And they researched and sought out bean from their community. This beans, it wasn't well known that matures in 40 days. After 30 days of planting them, they had them ready. In 40 days, they were ready to be stored in the dry stored. So it's important. It's a good example to recognize the value of our native seeds and to recover and revitalize this knowledge. Our work with the beans was difficult and to find the names for each one, but through our grandparents, we did the research to find the names of each bean, and we were able to find that out.
Pues el trabajo dentro del proyecto pues fue bastante, ¿no? Entre ellos de los conocimientos ancestrales, en este caso fue que son los frijoles y de la milpa, ¿no? Como son los frijoles. Ajá. Y nos planteamos objetivos en rescatar los conocimientos ancestrales de las no, también, ¿no? Creemos que es muy importante la divulgación. De mucho esfuerzo, de mucho tiempo, porque pues fue toda una serie de procesos que tuvimos que llevar por que hacer a los abuelitos, ¿no? Y existen bastantes, nosotros no sabíamos, al menos en mi forma, ni una gran variedad, y al verlos pues teníamos todo el mundo. Entonces ya tuvimos que recurrir con los abuelitos y preguntarles clave, se podría decir, como por ejemplo la temporada el periodo de cultivo, la fecha de cosecha. Nos surgió la inquietud de saber qué otros platillos que se elaboran con este frijol. Entonces, se hizo toda esa serie de trabajos en las que están asociadas al cultivo de maíz, pues nos dimos a la de especies nativas de frutales que tenemos aquí en la comunidad. También le proveen al abono, nitrógeno, ¿no? Entonces, con la milpa, con el sistema milpa y frijoles, ¿no? Entonces, el trabajo fue pues recolectar esas semillas y poder reproducir la adquisición de un poco de malla sombra en donde pues, ¿no? Entonces el trabajo pues fue identificar estas semillas porque pues en la comunidad mucha gente se interesa por las semillas nativas, los frutos, interesa donde va más. Entonces nosotros nos dimos a la tarea de hacer toda esa investigación, nos dimos a la como resultado que vamos a pegar en los lugares, en las rancherías, en los lugares que hay para que se dé a conocer el trabajo que hicimos y que vean las los frijoles, la milpa, los sistemas de siembra, todo, ¿no? Entonces, pues fue un trabajo un trabajo que se llevó más del tiempo de lo que
It was
esperaba.
a lot of time that we were able to spend on this. There were like 6 to 8 months that it would take us to do this work. It's been a lot of work that we've done to do the research on all these different types of beans and seeds and to work on this project in order to share this information with our people in our communities and the ranches around us. So these youth have now cataloged and identified around 39 different varieties of beans. And these 39 varieties are found without their communities. There are some campesinos, farmers, they only plant 2 to 5 varieties, but they did this work. They did this great work to catalog these 39 varieties. And then they did this by talking to the elderly people in their communities, the elders, their grandparents, and now they're sharing their traditional gastronomy. And they also started a traditional market. And I think that there should also be traditional options within our communities. There had been about 30 years that they hadn't carried out this work in their community. They went down to other communities so that they could get the merchandise that they needed, the supplies that they needed. People from their own community people from many communities go to this market. And this is a market where they are now commercializing their bean and their corn, and they're teaching by having these kinds of posters to revalue and to begin to recognize again their own seeds and the power that they have to feed us. So I think that with this work that they are doing, these young people, it's really something that shows we have this biological wealth within our communities. And sometimes it isn't necessary to just have a specific location, like have a seed bank. I don't really like the word bank, seed bank, but we are proposing an alternative way in the Milpa Alianza, where another group that I work with, the word instead is using seed sanctuary rather. using this idea that these are seed sanctuaries and they help us to get to the reality that we see with their and the fragileness of seeds and how to protect them and care for them. So this is what I wanted to share with you. And it is a work that I feel very passionate about, and in my community, we want to restore these cuescomates, those big storage vessels that you saw in that slide. And so we've seen that they want to tear them down, the cuescomates, because they want to have another room for their child or whatever. And these are things that we're being faced with modernity and colonization, and we need to continue to combat this to preserve our traditional ways. Thank you.
Si hay preguntas, si hay comentarios.
Are there any questions or comments that people, for Chastity or myself, or is there something that you want to share from the experience of your community, especially when we think about the importance of what Chris said, of having recommendations that you can have, that you can share with us in order to address in the main room when we go back to the big group. Do you have any suggestions, recommendations that we can put in the outcome document for this summit?
Yo creo que hay una pregunta en el chat de Ashley.
Hay una pregunta de Ashley. Sorry.
Yes, I had a question for Berenice. I'm a third-generation Mexican American, and I'm growing corn for the first time. So I have a lot of learning to do, and I'm trying to honor the process through ceremony and ritual, but I don't have a teacher locally, and so I didn't know if you could share with me and us today. For the seed saving, are there rituals or ceremonies around how to save seeds in a way that honors the indigenous tradition? And then do you know of a resource where I could learn a Nawa song for the corn?
Gracias, Rebeca.
Thank you. One of the things that is very practical about how to preserve corn seeds, first it has to do with its selection. On the corn cob, we need to select from the milpa system the corn cobs that are a distance from us. What I mean by that is that the milpa becomes an adaptation for the needs of each family, and also the biological condition of its height. If it's higher than what I can reach, well, then that corn cob is not going to be good for me. It has to be maybe in a position, the plant has to be maybe for me that's comfortable to harvest it. That's one of the characteristics that we have to look for. And it also has to be a plant where there is a good quantity of rows, that has a good capacity to pollinate, but sorry, it should be a big cob that's a good size, that's filled with kernels. There are some cobs that, because of deficient nutrition, then it starts to curve over or bend over because the upper part of the cob isn't filled. There's like a point of the cob that doesn't have any grains, any kernels. We can get rid of those and use those as food, but when you want to choose the ones to grow, then we need ones that are healthy, that have a lot of kernels. Once we choose it, then we can mark it from the moment that it's there in the corn field. And let's take first out we take the seeds from the cob once they're dried, that they've aired out. Once they've dried out and aired out, then we're going to see that the lines of the grain, we call them like the rows that are straight. They're straight because if we have a cob where the rows aren't identified easily, like they're crooked rows, well, that's not going to be a good seed. They have to be straight rows on the cob. And then besides that, it's divided into 3 sections. The cob is divided into 3 sections. The lower one towards the middle, you get rid of that because that's corn that matures and germinates in a very slow fashion. And the part from the point to the middle, that will accelerate. That will grow quickly. Then we can keep that one. And then the part in the middle, that's the part that we are going to use to conserve for seeds. That has a good capacity for germinating, that has good productivity, that it has the adequate rhythm in order to reproduce itself. But when you find that when there's not a lot of rain, or when our corn did not sprout in an even way, then we can use the points of the corn, because that's going to germinate very quickly, and it can reach the corn, the type of corn that we had planted before, and then we can harvest it all together. This can all be harvested at the same time. This is from the seeds at the very point. And this can guarantee that we'll have a good harvest, even when there isn't conditions that favor the even growth of the first seeds that we planted. And in order to conserve the seeds or preserve them, it's important to use, for example, the eucalyptus plants that are plants that repel the different pests. I think that I've answered all that part of your question. About different rituals and ceremonies. In my community, we're really losing a lot of this. So part of what I did was to reconnect with my ancestral calendar, the Mesoamerican ancestral calendar. And in this calendar, I realized that in February, the ceremony is just starting. That's when they do it in the Catholic Church, but that's when they bless. This is when we start to bless the seeds. There are other ways to bless the seeds, but we need to do this gradually. We need to gradually decolonize ourselves and continue to connect our people to our original traditions. But in the month of May, this is at a time when it's very important for my community, because on the 3rd of May, the first Sunday after the 3rd of May, which is tomorrow, we go to a place, it's a mountain, a sacred mountain in our community, to pray for the rains. And this is a time that's very important for my community. And then after May, in the month of September, this is the time to give thanks for the rain, because now we will be doing the harvest, and to offer the first foodstuffs as our gratitude, to show our gratitude. And these are these ceremonies that I've noticed within my community. Another one that's very important is in August. Even though we don't do that big ceremony to celebrate the big corn cobs, but what we do is to put a little bit of flowers in all the 4 corners of our cornfield. And you can do this on the 15th of August. You choose like a bunch of flowers. It doesn't have to be bought. You can just use it from the ones that you find within your field. And then what you do is you take this bouquet of flowers and you put one in the middle and in the 4 corners of your field. And this symbolizes the 4 directions of the energy and of the universe that has given your cornfield the necessary nutrition that it needs. And then in the month of November, and part of what is, you probably do know about this, it is the time when to place on our altars the food that honors everything that our ancestors, the knowledge that they have shared with us through the corn, through the different foods that we dedicate to our ancestors on our altars. And songs, when you asked about songs, Ashley, in the chat, I'm going to place the name of a person that's working in the US, that they are our allies of the Milpa Alliance, and it's called Teso Somok. And he speaks the Nahuatl language, and he also teaches it. And I'm sure that he will have some songs that you can connect with for the corn, that you can sing to the corn, the Nahuatl songs. I don't know, are there any other questions?
Por acá hay otro comentario sobre la blusa. Y
there's another one about the my shirt. It's the shirt from the shirt that I have on is from my community, and then the one my sister has on, my daughter has on, is from the Chican people. They were able to resist the different conflicts that came about in the area because they resisted a very violent struggle against the narco trafficking. They had to do like a community circle around their community, and they were able to resist this narco trafficking because they had food within their homes, and that's my daughter's blouse is from that community. I'm going to leave my website of the Alianza Milpa. It's been a bit of a nightmare. We haven't been able to restore and to recover our website. We've been having some problems with it, but I will leave my own email for you to contact me. But we don't have a way to reestablish our website. Maybe we'll open another website, and when we do that, of the Milpa Alliance, I will share it with the list here, the list of people that were on this for this summit. And then we do have an alliance with Clayton, and maybe he can talk about the work that we've done with also Brittany's Secret. And then there's also work that we're doing in South America and Ecuador, especially. It's part of a network that we're working on as seed guardians. I do believe that that's part of the comments that I saw in the chat. I don't know if there's anything else, any other question, especially any recommendations. Does anybody have any recommendations to address within our group?
You want to go first? Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, I just want to say, Senora Sanchez, that I like your clothing. It's similar to the ones that the Maya people use, and in that capacity, I'd like to see if we can maintain contact, si podemos seguir contactando, si me puedes mandar su correo electrónico.
If we can stay in touch, and I'd like to be in touch with you if you can share.
Electrónico en el
chat. Of course, I'll leave my email address here in the chat. Thank you very much.
So I had a comment too. So, mejor decirlo en español, ¿verdad? Que el comentario mío es que yo noté.
My comment is that I noticed in the film that Berenice showed, y todo lo que, and everything that Chastity said, it said you emphasize talking to the elderly
los conocimientos que ellos tenían,
to recover the knowledge that they have. So I wanted to know if there were strategies that you use in order to connect with the grandparents, the grandmothers, the grandfathers, in order to continue with their knowledge. That's a good question. It's very interesting because it makes me think about this connection that we have that's intergenerational connection, this connection that we have with our grandparents. And we consider our grandparents, all the elderly people in our community. This has been broken. This connection has been broken with the children. There's not that connection anymore, but we can connect with the grandchildren, especially if we consider that all the children of community are the grandchildren. And we as grandchildren, we don't have that connection that we should have with our parents, but we do have it with our grandparents. So this generation that's in the middle is a little, as I would say, a bit disconnected, because it has been the one that has been more submitted to colonization. Our grandparents didn't share the knowledge, nor the traditional clothing, nor to teach them how to appreciate the traditional food. Rather, they thought that the colonial food was more important. So always they would tell them, no, you don't eat this because this is the Indians' food. Don't speak this language. I'm not going to teach you this because they're going to show disrespect to you. So throughout time, then the children arrive. And when the grandchildren arrive, then that's a different historic moment, because the grandchildren are going to demand this identity, this traditional identity. And so then we are reconnecting through the teachings that the grandparents are having, or they feel that they have that liberty to continue to teach that traditional knowledge. In my community, this is happening a lot, and I see that in a lot of other communities this is happening as well. And then this connection with the grandparents and the grandchildren, this is an element that exists in all communities. It's going to be very hard to maybe connect to our own parents until we show that there is this wealth, that there's value within rescuing our and recovering our tradition. It's not something that's methodological that we're going to look for this connection with our grandparents. It's really through dialoguing, by listening to their stories and to recognize the dignity that they have in those stories, that dignity that they may feel with the right to share their words, to share their knowledge with us. For many years, they have hidden that knowledge, but when they see that people want to listen to them, the community wants to listen to them, then they will open their hearts. They will open their hearts and their knowledge. They'll share everything that they know with the community.
Chastity, ¿quieres decir algo? Do you want to say something about that or not?
I think we have to move into the next portion. We're running a little short of time here again. I'm not sure if Chris is still with us, Chris or Amy.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The next session, that part is where I think everybody came back from the breakout rooms, and we're going to get some I guess I'm not sure if it's called a report or just sharing information what happened in each of those breakout rooms. We have room 1, 2, 3, and 4. And yesterday we started with